As it turns out, I am fresh from the hot yoga studio. In fact, that hits my wet hair. Okay, thank you so much for coming tonight. Thank you to our absent friend Joan, Dobbie, and thank you Kelly and Martha for all your organizing, and for Stephen, yes, for taping this session. And I have to say, I'm very honored to be reading with Charles and Lauren. I am, as you can see, the opening act to the larger acts to come, but I'm happy to be in that position. I'm going to read from my forthcoming novel, Weather Woman, which is coming out, I think, in the fall of 2017, although I have yet to get the contract, so we'll see. The novel is the story of a meteorologist who discovers that she has the power to change the weather. Her name is Bronwyn Arter, and she's a dropout. Come right in. I haven't started reading yet. She's a dropout from a PhD program in atmospheric sciences at MIT. And so as a scientist, it is, of course, very difficult for her to immediately believe that she has this power. And the early part of the book is kind of this back and forth between, I think something is happening, but of course it can't be. The section that I'm going to read to you takes place after she's gotten past that point, and she really does understand that she is capable of changing the weather. But she hasn't really told anyone, and she's wondering how she can put this skill to use. It has been, at the time of this, where the novel takes place, it's been a year of intense weather everywhere in the way that it is now with climate change. But she has become focused in particular on Tornado Alley, where there have been some really big tornadoes that have done a huge amount of devastation. Since high school, she has followed the work of a meteorologist named Vince Carmichael, who's one of these kind of he's extremely savvy about the behavior of tornadoes, and he's therefore saved many lives in his reporting. And she's kind of revered him, thought of him as sort of a weather god. He's also very demonstrative on television. So she's decided that she's made an appointment with him. From New Hampshire. And she flies out to the Midwest, well, to Oklahoma City where he is. She flies to Wichita, but he's in Oklahoma City, and she drives down to Oklahoma City to have this meeting with him. Let's see, is there anything else you need to know? Okay, I think that's more or less it. She's a very, I should say personally, she's kind of a shy person. She's not exactly out there, even though she does have this huge power. Because she was unable to find a convenient flight to Oklahoma City, she chose Wichita instead, and now she must drive 160 miles south. Her rental car, a Leighton Waddle Ford SUV, is far too big for her needs, but it does make her feel safely armored. The landscape on either side of the road is a lesson in geometry, with its squared-off fields, its round hay bales, its ruler straight roads. Evidence of devastation appears unexpectedly. Road signs crashed and crumpled, uprooted trees with tumorous root balls exposed, barns sheared to half their height. In one place, just after she has seen a sign for a town called Hope, there's a pile of sheetrock and shingles, pipes and wires, and a pink toilet on its side as if napping. The mid-level alto cumulus are a metallic blue with the defining crenellated tops of Castellanus clouds, announcing unsettled weather ahead. The sun glows through them, turning the yellow fields beneath them gold. It feels as if she's Dorothy in Kansas, before the tornado arrived to sweep them off to Oz. She scans the horizon for a wall cloud, a tornado's precursor, but so far she sees nothing. At a rest stop, she stops, gets out, sniffs the air. The pavement is dark with recent rain, and humidity sticks to her face and arms with the tenacity of burrs. Beyond the restroom, fields stretch clear to the horizon. The sky here is huge, more dramatic than any she's ever seen, and full of bravado. It gulps everything, dwarfing the land beneath. A loneliness engulfs her. What is she doing here? Can she function in such an unfamiliar landscape? Is she imagining it, or is that really thunder growling in the distance? Goosebumps pepper her arms. She hears the whir of blood in her neck and cheeks. She doesn't trust any of the reports she's read from the National Weather Service, but Vince will set her straight. Okay, so she goes to her Holiday Inn the night before her appointment, and she turns on the TV. She has the feeling she's seeing him for the first time, or seeing things about him she never noticed before. His eyes are slightly asymmetrical, a soft gray, and they seem to follow her every movement, as people say the Mona Lisa does. His report matches that of the National Weather Service. A storm front will be coming through in 48 hours. He appears exhausted and is hopping around less than usual, perhaps saving himself for the upcoming crisis. Still, he speaks with gravitas, as if he's standing in a pulpit with the power of an entire religion behind him. Who wouldn't be ready to follow such an impressive, authoritative man? Reassured, she switches off the TV before he's done. Okay, now we're picking up when she's going to her appointment. The weather center is busy as a Hollywood set and infused with, if not a sense of alarm, at least a sense of focused attention and high purpose. Vince, back to Bronwyn, sits at the center of a semicircle of screens displaying maps, radar, Doppler, reports on the weather all over the country into Canada, Mexico, and across the Pacific. His minions work at stations in an outer ring, some on the phone, some gazing so fixedly at their screens they appear catatonic. Raised monitors throughout the room play a daytime drama currently being broadcast from another part of the station. To one side of all this activity is a stage from which Vince delivers his reports. The receptionist instructs Bronwyn to wait on the periphery. He'll be with you shortly, she tells her, before she glides off. Stay here. The din makes it hard to focus. People whiz by. On the daytime drama, a woman sobs. A guy on the phone is ordering lunch. No mustard, I said, no mustard. On the far side of the room, someone yells, typhoon in the South China Sea. She waits, watching Vince. After several minutes, he turns to assess her, squinting a little and making a single culvert of his two exhausted eyes. Bronwyn smiles. A man on the daytime drama gasps. He's just been shot. Vince turns away, raising a single finger in her direction. Fire in Yosemite, someone shouts. After another 10 minutes, Vince rises, cardboard coffee cup in hand, and walks past her, nodding. Assuming this is her cue, she follows. Down a hallway they march, into a large brown office, walls covered with framed photographs of tornado-damaged landscapes, photos of supercells taken from space, award certificates, citations of excellence, man cave, brag chamber. Vince sits behind his desk into a chair that dwarfs him, and he leans back, regarding her with curiosity. She stands still, letting herself be examined while also regarding him back, trying to match the intensity of his gaze, her spine lifting and straightening with purpose. He's so much smaller and craggier in person, his face textured as a dry riverbed. Well, he says, I'm Bronwyn Arter. Yes, of course, have a seat. As I said in my email, I've been watching you since I was in high school. You're the reason I wanted to become a meteorologist. Vince's face relaxes and he laughs. You're not the first, but thank you. What can I do for you? She probes his irises, tests the air. Yesterday's sky fills her vision, the metallic clouds, the rain-perfumed air, the immensity of it all. I felt I had to see you in person, she says slowly, reaching for a rhythm. I know I have a lot to learn from you. You said you're from... It's suddenly clear he doesn't remember her email. He has no idea who she is, though they supposedly have an appointment. Originally New Jersey, she says, but now I'm in New Hampshire. I do weather at WVOX out of Manchester. He chuckles. Ah, tame weather. You don't have weather like ours back there, do you? We have plenty of hurricanes and blizzards. The difference is you can see that weather coming for days. You know exactly what it's going to do. Sometimes. I'm guessing you're here to ask for a job? The question itself does not surprise her, but she wasn't prepared for it to arrive so soon. She wanted to compare notes first, tell him how she used to watch clouds as a child lying in the backyard and staring up, imagining herself drifting among them. If only his face were a cloud she might rearrange. But it is immutable and deflecting. He's bolted in his seat, like a heavy child on a seesaw, holding her up at his whim. She must shift the conversation's terms. Not a job exactly, she says, or at least not in the way you're thinking. He raises a single eyebrow, tips back his chair so it squeaks, and the sound releases something in her, and she takes the plunge, overriding doubt, looking first at him, then at the refuge of her lap, then at him again. She's here after all. She's here after all. She came here for this. It's hard to explain exactly, she begins, but something has happened to me that I don't know how exactly or why, but I seem to be able to, clearing her throat, smiling to please, then consciously eradicating the smile, alter the weather. Vince frowns. The capillaries in the tips of her fingers twitch. Vince leans forward. Excuse me? She sees she has piqued his interest. She smiles, this time intent on pleasing. Yes, I know it sounds unusual, but I have a way. I generate an enormous. I've done this a number of times now, and yes? She rides the wave of his encouragement. I stopped an electrical storm on Mount Washington. I have witnesses, but that's only one thing I've done. I've also. She pauses. Hold on, hon. Back up a minute. I'm trying to understand. He leans forward, his rutted chin in the lead. Did you really just tell me you changed the weather? Well, his eyes spark, two little fireflies. She grins, sheepish and proud. Yes. She's never said this aloud, and it feels strange and boastful, but if she's going to confess this to anyone, Vince Carmichael is that person. Let's get our terms straight here, he says. Weather? You're talking wind and rain, thunder and lightning, humidity and temperature? Are we on the same page here? Yes. This isn't a metaphor? No. He nods, a long, slow up and down that resembles bowing. You said you stopped an electrical storm. What's your technique? It's hard to explain exactly. It's a matter of concentration. His attention on her is avid, unswerving. She is the force of the moment, the tornado passing over his radar screen. Enlivened by his focus, she gestures, spreading arms and hands. I corral a lot of energy, and then it's almost as if I leave my body and become the weather myself. He holds up a palm. Wait a sec. I want some other people to hear this. He pokes his intercom. Kathy, can you send Rob and Earl in here? Thanks, hon. He sits back, shaking his head. Astounding. Finally, she's talking to the right person. The person she's wanted to talk to all along. Someone who understands these forces. Someone who watches them daily, as she does. She wants to tell him about the river, the wedding, about her sense of attunement and power. But this is all so personal and private, she'd really rather explain it without anyone else present. I'd rather just tell you, she says. But it's so damn interesting, Vince says. A young guy is already standing in the doorway, someone Bronwyn saw in the set. His eyebrows are stuck in the raised position of a genuflector. You wanted me, he says? Yeah, Rob, have a seat. Next, a huge head appears around the doorframe. It floats, seemingly unattached to a body, sporting thick rimless glasses and a lazy, glistening lower lip. Vince beckons flamboyantly, impatiently. Hey, Earl, come in here. You gotta hear this. Earl's full body comes into view and fills the doorframe. He stands well over 6 feet, and he wears a clerical collar, a baseball cap, and green Converse sneakers. I'll get another chair, Vince says. No, I'm good, Earl says. He occupies a position against a bookshelf behind Rob. Vince leans forward again and raises lays both palms on his desk. Okay, Earl, Rob, this woman here, Ms. What did you say your name was? Arter, Bronwyn Arter. Guys, this is something big here. Ms. Arter, well, go ahead, sweetheart, you tell them. Bronwyn winces at sweetheart, but decides not to make a point of it now. Vince sits back, keeping his gaze on her, as if she is his prized student. Bronwyn hesitates. She's always better with one person than a big group. Go on, Vince urges. Okay, she recrosses her legs and clears her throat. I've always been really interested in weather since I was a kid. I used to study atmospheric sciences at MIT, but now I'm a meteorologist at a station in New Hampshire. And recently I've come to realize that I have the capacity to alter the weather, you know, stop storms and so forth. She pauses to let them absorb what she said, examining their faces but finding no visible reaction other than a slight widening of Rob's eyes. She stopped a thunderstorm on Mount Washington. Isn't that something, Rob? Vince says. Rob's gaze flicks from Vince to Bronwyn to Vince again. Yeah, I guess it is. You guess? You guess? Come on, Rob, grow some balls. This is big news, right, Earl? Earl's big, placid lake of a face remains untouched, and Vince does not press his point. We had something like this happen once before, Vince says. Remember that Native American gal? Real short and wrinkled, white hair? From the Kiowa tribe or the Kickapoo, I don't remember. She was one of the elders anyway. She said she would get her spirits to call off the tornadoes if we agreed to stop using our cell phones. Not just here at the station, but all over Oklahoma. He rolls his eyes. Yeah, right, that was really going to happen. But this is different, right, Ms. Arter? No strings attached here. Bronwyn nods. Vince seems to want her to speak, but only so much. You and I could be a terrific team, he says. I spot the tornadoes developing and you zap them. The old 1-2 punch. What do you think, Earl? Earl pulls in his lower lip, but holds to his poker face. Perhaps her efforts offend his religion. You know what I think, Vince continues? I think this is big enough we should get on the horn to the president. You think so, Rob? Sure, I guess. We need to let him know we have a huge resource at this station here, a national resource. Wait, Bronwyn says. Things are happening way too fast. What president does he mean exactly? Surely not the US president. She came here thinking this meeting would be private and under the radar, but she's lost ownership somewhere along the way. I don't really want, but Vince is already on the intercom, this time speaking through the receiver. Kathy, can you get the president on the line for me? Of course the president of the United States. Who do you think, the president of Estonia? He returns the receiver to its cradle. Bronwyn, panicked, looks at the other two men for help. Rob is staring into his lap, where his interlaced hands form a fist. Earl wears an expression of ambiguous consternation. Vince relaxes back in his chair. How long does it take to get the president on the phone? Maybe the call won't go through. Vince catches Earl's eye and winks. He turns back to Bronwyn with a smile that does not look exactly team-building. Bronwyn has rarely felt so uncomfortable. If only she could control social situations as she controls the weather. Do you talk to the president often, Bronwyn asks. It feels like a lame question, possibly even insulting. Vince's smile beams on. Vince, Earl says. Shut up, Earl. See, I can say that to Earl because we go way back. High school buddies, Earl and me. Right, Earl? Vince, Earl says again. Ms. Arter, every time I see a supercell building on that radar screen, I think how great it would be if I could stop that sucker. I have that wish at least once a week during tornado season. No, more, much more. Hell, almost every day. I wish I could control the weather. Who wouldn't want that? A perfect day at the beach? Bingo! Snow for skiing? Bring it on, ta-da! Everyone wants that kind of power. If I could order up the right weather, I'd be raking in the bucks. Heck, I'd rule the world. He pauses, reveling in his contemplation of world power. But guess what? He leans forward again so his chest is almost lying on the desk. I can't do that. And that Native American gal couldn't do it with her spirits. And you, Ms. Arter, you as sure as hell can't do it either. Oh wait, let's not assume anything. Surely you know we're going to be slammed by another bad storm system in another 24 hours, give or take? Why don't you call off that system right now? He sits back in his chair again, chuckling a little. Sure, he's called her bluff. Come on, we all know you can't do this stuff, so stop wasting my time. He reaches for the intercom again, not bothering with the receiver. Kathy, it's time to escort Ms. Arter out. Showboating nut job, he says, shakes his head dolefully at Earl and consults his cell phone. Wind whooshes in her eardrums. She feels feverish. He never put in a call to the president. He's been mocking her all along. Why was she so slow to see what he was doing? Earl saw and probably Rob did too. All these years she's admired this terrible, mean-spirited, close-minded man. The swanky, white-clad receptionist has materialized beside her and is tapping her shoulder. Okay, time to get out, as if she expects Bronwyn to resist. For a cloud to form, particles must exist on which vapor can condense. Soot, salt, bacteria, a variety of particles encourage condensation. Anger, too, needs a surface on which to perch and grow, its own version of hygroscopic particles. She exits the station quietly swearing, anger at Vince curling around the residue of her former worship. She was stupid to have pinned her hopes on him. They have nothing in common, and he is not a nice man. He isn't even polite.